The talk for today is God is aware, actually God is alive, aware, and awake. And when somebody asked me, what are you going to talk about? I said, God is alive, aware, and awake. And it just came out of my mouth. And then I went to write it and I thought, why did I say that? I know it and we all know it, but how do we know it? And how do we make it more alive? How do we make God act and be active more in our daily lives? So that's what we're going to talk about. Before we go into that, I'd like to settle me down, settle you down a little bit with a meditation. And so if you would just sit down for a minute, relax, close your eyes, take a deep breath, and just let these words flow through your mind. I enter into the stillness to align myself with the one mind, the one present that permeates all of creation. I feel myself as a part of this creation, connected to all nature. I am the light and darkness. I am the oceans and the land. I am the rocks and the trees, the fish and the birds, the beasts of the earth, and I am one with every human being on the planet. In this oneness, I sense the order of all things. I feel the divine love that moves in me and in every molecule of the cosmos. I know the divine intelligence that is the foundation of all that is or ever will be. I am one with all. So on that note, you can open your eyes back up if you'd like. You can keep them closed. If you want to listen that way. Sometimes people do that. But today I'm going to take a journey to the realization that God is alive, aware, and awake in our everyday lives. And I want to emphasize in our everyday lives because it's one thing to come here and listen and feel that. It's another thing to walk out the door and for the rest of the week, every moment of every day, live in Christ consciousness. And that's what I'm asking you to consider today. The way to that realization can be expressed as Christ consciousness. That is a state of awareness of our true nature, our higher self, and our birthright as children of God. Christ consciousness is our living expression as a child of spirit, as we unfold our own divine plan onto the earth plane, bringing heaven to earth. So as we go within and we identify with that Christ consciousness, the heaven is within, and we're bringing that heaven outward to the earth. Living in the reality of our Christ itself is actually being fully alive and invested in who we truly are. How many of us live a life and are invested in who we truly are? Do we walk around with this kind of humanness and an ego state, or do we really invest in who we truly are? In our Christ itself, we live as inspiration for others to seek this for themselves, so we can collectively move our planet forward into the divine plan for planetary transformation and glorification. Here's the best news of it all. As this awareness in the human mind grows and strengthens, life becomes more liberated, joyful, peaceful, and love-dominated. And for those of you who are on a journey who has just started to look at Christ consciousness and become more Christ-like, you know what that means: liberated, joyful, free, happy, love-dominated. We know that God is with us and that we are living in Christ consciousness when the fear which creates isolation and despair begins to diminish in thought and feeling. So when that fear starts to diminish, you know that you're living more out of your Christ-like being. That's when we are free to live the life we were born to live as a child of spirit in a love-filled and supportive universe. Doesn't that sound great? I love that. I love that statement. Isn't it wonderful how we have the ability to live this glorious life? The fact that you know deep down inside you have the right to live this life. Sometimes we don't know how to do that. Jesus showed us how to do that. In Unity, we talk about Jesus being the way shower, the person who lived his Christ consciousness on a daily basis. I believe that the goal in this human life is to evolve towards spirit. This is a journey that unfolds over the course of one's lifetime. It isn't an overnight deal, it's a lifetime. And it's an adventure of moving from time and space to eternity. Throughout this journey, Spirit reaches into our hearts and minds to urge us to unite with our source of creation. With Jesus and with us, God actually steps down into our skin of our humanness and shows us the way back home. And I've been there. I've had God step into my skin. It's kind of a weird thing. Jesus showed us how it was done and how we can move closer and closer to our spiritual selves. Jesus' teachings centered around helping people find their own internal source of spirit. He lived what he taught. He was the embodiment of love and goodness, peace, and understanding. His God-centeredness allowed him to achieve what we consider miracles because he understood the natural laws of the universe. And he was able to tap into that great power of love and bring healing to people through that great power of love. And we have that too, and we can do that too, and we do that. He practiced meditation and prayer to gain strength to meet the challenges of daily life. He consistently showed love, kindness, patience, and gentleness to others and encouraged them to open to the spirit within themselves. He was the one who said, "The kingdom of heaven is within." And he lived his life to show us how to find spirit. And he wanted to show us what a human personality looks like when he or she is spirit-centered. And that, what an inspiration that is. He paved the way for us to find God for ourselves. Wow, let me repeat that one more time. He paved the way for us to find God for ourselves. And what that means is one size doesn't fit all. Not everybody follows the same path. Not everybody gets there the same way. We all have different ways. Some people may do it through a religion, a certain religion, a combination of religions. Sometimes they combine different things. But all ways and paths are honored if they lead a person into becoming more loving, forgiving, patient, kind, compassionate, tolerant, and happy. All paths of love lead to the same source of all that is. We are all individualized expressions of God, and we all are moving towards our connection and unification with that source. God is alive, aware, and awake, as long as we are alive, aware, and awake. God is always here. We just need to wake up to that presence. So, as I was thinking about this, I thought, that's really nice to say all those things, but the tough part was trying to figure out, how do I do that? How do we do that? How do you do that? And we're extremely lucky here at Unity Spiritual Center to have so many tools. We have the prayer power every Wednesday. We have the fall program. We have classes. We have meditations. We have so many opportunities and so many tools to gain that connection with our source and learn how to do that. There's one tool that I did want to talk about today. We don't have time, obviously, for all of the things that we want to talk about. But I thought the 5 principles should be pulled in at this point. And before I review those 5 principles, I want to tell you something that happened to me. As I was doing it, this little voice kept on saying, "I think you should reverse them." And I said, "No, that'd be silly." And the little voice said, No, you need to reverse them. And I have learned that when that little voice says it over and over and over again and doesn't go away, I need to listen. So I reversed them. So we're going to do 5 first, and we're going to work our way to 1. it made a little more sense to me in a way to do it this way. So let's take a look at them. Number 5 is knowing and understanding the laws of life, also called truth, are not enough. A person must also live the truth that he or she knows. And by living, when we talk about this principle, we're talking about action. Action is setting our intention on living the rich, fulfilled life that God has intended for us from the very beginning through the use of spiritual principles. Charles Fillmore, Charles Unity's co-founder, said that the truth you know is the truth you use. Otherwise, it is only theory and has no power to change your life. I love that statement. The truth you know is the truth you use. We use the 5 principles on a daily basis and in all life situations to help keep us in the flow of well-being and to have a greater awareness of God's presence. So I say start with action. Start in the morning. I know that some of us have morning routine. How many of you have a morning routine of prayer, meditation, something to get you there? I'd highly recommend you, even if you start with a minute, just a little bit, just get started with it. Take the action. When you do that, you set yourself up to be in God's presence all day long. When you don't, you aren't. So try starting that way, a little bit at a time. Without actually applying and demonstrating the truth principles in our daily thoughts and actions, we will not achieve Christ consciousness. Reading, studying, and discussing are very inspiring, but that's not enough. We must walk our talk daily. We've got to keep practicing. Sometimes we make mistakes and we have to forgive ourselves, and then we continue working on until we get it. And we grow a little bit more, a little bit more, and a little bit more every day. So number 4 is prayer is creative thinking that heightens the connection with God mind and therefore brings forth wisdom, healing, prosperity, and everything good. To help us gain clarity on our thoughts and feelings, we practice the 4th principle through daily prayer and meditation. Under the direction of Spirit, we can change any limiting beliefs that are incongruent with our Christ nature. Through prayer and meditation, we align our heart, mind with God. Affirmative prayer involves connecting with the Spirit of God within and asserting positive beliefs about a desired outcome. Affirmative prayer is the same method of prayer Jesus taught when he said, "So I tell you, whatever you ask for prayer, believe that you have received it, and it will be yours." So that's number 2. Then we move on to number 3. Human beings create their experience by the activity of their thinking. Everything in the manifest realm has its beginning in thought. So to me, by practicing the principles, prayer and meditation, I can begin to realize what my thoughts are and how I'm thinking. And I can now begin to control those thoughts. And when I change those thoughts, I change my life. There is something that, how many of you were in the fall program, The Eye of the Storm, last year? Do you remember that? There was, in session 2, you know how we were pulling out those affirmations? I pulled one out, and I've had it on my computer since the time I pulled it out and read it. And it goes like this: I make my life mean what it means. The way I choose to relate to my experience is what my experience becomes. And that's the good news, and that's the bad news. Because we have the choice to make our experience mean what we want it to mean. Yesterday, Tim called me. He was getting off work at the casino at Tower City. Called me and said, my car broke down. It's not running. So I said, looked at my computer, I make my life mean what it means. The way I choose to relate to my experience is what my experience becomes. And I said to him, why don't you look at your insurance card on the back? There's there's a number for towing. Have them tow it back here, and we'll figure it out when you get home. Now, that could have gone a number of different ways, from horrible, I'm upset, it's ruined my day, it's ruined my life, to, oh wow, and how exciting, the car broke down. Well, I wasn't quite there, but I was closer to that side than the other side. And every time something comes, I read that every single day. I say it all the time. And when something hits me, I think to myself, if I react negatively, I say to myself, okay, look, I'm making my life mean what it means. I have the choice to experience this the way I want to experience it. And that's what's meant by everything in the manifest realm has its beginning in thought. So that then brings me to the first two principles. And I'm going to put these together because I really do think that you can't really understand these first two unless you have done the action and moved yourself forward to this. So number two is human beings have a spark of divinity within them, the Christ Spirit within. Their very essence is of God, and therefore they are also inherently good. If I were to say, we have a spark of divinity within us, the Christ Spirit is within us, we are the very essence of God, and therefore we are inherently good. When you think about saying that to yourself, it's hard to take sometimes. You say, me, God, the spark of divinity? The Christ within? I'm the very essence of God? Yes. That's why I said God is alive, aware, and awake. If we wake up to that divinity, we have to allow it to come forward. We have to allow it to unfold. And the first principle, God is absolute good everywhere present. Well, if we're the very essence of God, that means that we are absolute good and everywhere present. That's why I see it. I took them backwards because I thought, you know what? If I start with one, I'm going to just, I'm not going to get it. But if I can go backwards and work my way up to that, then I get it. I understand it. So I found a description of Christ consciousness I'd like to share with you, and I just thought this was kind of really beautiful. It goes like this. Seated inside every human heart is a tiny bud. This is the embryonic soul, the growing part of our being which houses our divine nature. What waters this seed is spirit, divine love with its kaleidoscope components, color, vibration, sound, light, pattern, texture, all a reflection of the magnificent, wondrous source of creation. The tender bud responds to everything that is good, beautiful, and true. Can you relate to that? Have you had that little bit of a bud in there? Have you looked outside or the sunrise today? Of course, I had to drive my husband to the rapid today at 5 o'clock in the morning. But the sun was coming, it was about 5:30. The sun was coming up, and it was magnificent. And that's what watered that little bud. When I look at the lake, that waters my bud. When I hear Eric sing, that waters my bud. You watered my bud, Eric. But those are the things that make it grow. Those are the things that make it work. Spirit energies weave around the little spark of divinity, breathing life and love into it. Growth of self emerges as our divine nature is combined with our human consciousness to create a flower of great beauty and fragrance, unique and vital to the cosmic fabric of reality. So we're combining this divine consciousness with our human personality. And I'd like to give you an actual example of how that happened with me, and maybe you can relate to this. The other day I was going to Lincoln Electric in Metro, Ohio. And it's a very industrial building. It's concrete. You walk in, you go downstairs into the tunnel. It's dark, it's gray. It's just a manufacturing organization from as you can imagine. So as I was walking down the steps, I saw the security guard sitting in his little booth, an older gentleman who's been working for years and years and years and kind of spent and tired. And I said, hey, how are you? And he goes, I am fantastic. How are you? I said, I am absolutely fabulous. And he said, you know, I could see you before you even came around the corner down those steps. And I said, was it my wonderful glow that preceded me? He said, absolutely. And And I said, oh, I'm just so happy. I said, I made it from North Olmsted to Mentor in 45 minutes. And I did. And he goes, wow, that's pretty good. And I said, yeah. I said, I know it's impossible, but I have a little trick I use with time. And I told him what I do. I said, I believe you live in the moment by moment by moment. And this time thing is just made up. There's no past, there's no future. It's just moment. So I figure, I just say to myself, I'm going to be there at 4:30, and I am. Because I don't think that this whole time thing really is very relevant. And he started laughing. He looked at me, he says, have you ever seen The Secret? And I said, seen The Secret? This little old man sitting there, seen The Secret? Have I seen The Secret? Not only have I seen The Secret, but I have read it, I've seen it, I've taught it, I've worked it, I've lived it. And he says, oh, well, he says, hold on a second. And he goes and he reaches into his pocket and he pulls out this actual stone. And I looked at him, I said, a gratitude stone. He says, how did you know? I says, I know. He says, well, I call it a blessing stone. He says, and I give these away to everybody. He says, you are the first person who knew exactly what it was, and I didn't have to explain it. And I said, oh, that's very nice. So I went to hand it to him, and he says, no, keep it. I want you to keep it. And I said, oh, thank you so much. And by that time now, I was like, I'm thinking, oh, wow, this is like so cool. This is just so cool. But at the same time, my client came, and so we went away, and I worked with him for an hour and a half on The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, which is even cooler. And and that's why I think we're the time thing, I was all, oh, yeah, I was into all this whole thing. So on the way back, I said to him, I wanted to tell you this story, but, Jim came up sooner than I thought. And let me tell you the story that happened. And that is that we were teaching this, Tim and I were teaching this E squared class. And in it was 1 week, we were supposed to find something that happened that was unbelievably coincidental. That it told us beyond a reasonable doubt that God does exist, that we are connected to this universe in a way that we don't realize, and that this would be beyond a reasonable doubt. So I went home one night from the class, and I was going through, my hopes were to find, I hoped like heck that my son would find somebody who was like-minded like us, because I just thought that would be the coolest thing in the entire universe. So when I went home that night from the class, I was going through his girlfriend's photos because she is a photographer. And I thought, I'm just going through her photos to see what she's like. And look what pops up, but the E2 square. That's actually a screenshot of her Facebook page. I thought I was going to lose it. And so then the next page was the excerpt that she had, and I just highlighted it and taken it to class that day, and here's what it says. Remember in Disney's Snow White when she's lying on the forest floor crying? She feels all those eyes staring at her. And indeed, dozens of forest creatures are skittering around and scampering about. But the moment she raises her head and looks around, all of the cute little birds, squirrels, and deer dive behind the trees. All she can see is a solid, unmoving forest. In reality, our universe is a moving, scampering energy filled with infinite possibilities. But because our eyes have locked in on problem mode, that's what appears to be our reality. And every time I think about that, I think about, am I like Snow White in the forest with my head down? And what I'm saying here is you need to open your eyes to what's moving around you. It's all around you. The blessings are there. The wonderful situations are there. The potentialities are there. It's all there. But if we are not awake to it, we will not see it. And then it says it sure looks like reality, and in parentheses, or you'll see it when you believe it. So you'll see it when you believe it, but you got to believe it first. And then there was a quote, it says, you will not break loose until you realize that you yourself forged the chains that bind you. So, as I walked out, I said to him, thank you so much. He said, oh, blessings, Laverne, blessings, Laverne. I said, blessings to you too, and I realized I don't even know his name. But it didn't matter. We were closer in that moment of God connection than I would have been had I known his name. That was irrelevant at that point. And so here's the rest of the story. I had hoped so much that my son would, find somebody like-minded. So not only did she have that posted, and we've talked about it since then. It was a wonderful conversation. She says, "Oh my goodness, I can't believe that somebody else read that book and is teaching that book." And she's just a wonderful woman. So she has, we have the kids up there. She happens to be a nanny. She went through that Chagrin Falls nanny school. She's from Buffalo. And so she's a photographer, so she posted this picture of the children that she nannies. And here was the posting. This was from the 19th. Today's the 22nd, so this was a few days ago, Thursday, Friday. She says the key to happiness. Too often we get caught up, and these are in Kaylin's own words, bless her soul. Too often we get caught up in our own thoughts, stress of real life, things that need to be done. Things that never need to be worried about because everything will always work out and be okay. I don't know when these fears and thoughts begin to happen, but as a child, life is filled with pure happiness and joy. Her name is Kaylin Joy, by the way. She got the name because her parents named the first girl, their middle name was Joy. And then when the twins came along, her parents said, well, they're just a joy to be with too, so let's name them Joy too. So all of them have the middle name Joy in that family. So she continues to say, but as a child, life is filled with pure happiness and joy. They live in the moment. Yes, they have fears, problems, needs, but it only involves that moment. And minutes later, when they are fed, kissed, reassured, they move on with their day. They do not hold on to stress like adults and continue to think about it over and over and over. I learned so much about happiness from the boys I nanny. So blessed to be surrounded with their smiles, joy, and good vibes. They remind me every day how simple life really is and help me to always remember to take joy and smile, at the little things in life, and not to carry worries around all day on my back because no matter what, everything will work out just how it's supposed to. So I'm just blessed to have her in my life, and it's just the connection that when you open up to it, it shows up in front of you. It shows up in your life. You have to be open to it. You have to receive it. God is alive, aware, and awake, but you need to be alive, aware, and awake as well. So to finish up with this, after having done all this, I thought to myself, really, where do I stand on this? And I do believe that the goal of our existence is to become large, loving, vibrant souls housed in human bodies. And we need to experience this on a daily basis. It's just so joyful, it's so liberating, it's so wonderful. There is within our being, in our core, those endowments of spirit that lovingly help us achieve this existence. The help is there. The help is always there. We are so loved and adored by spirit. We are offspring of creation, and spirit is constantly seeking to unify with us. Always there. Just, again, open to it. That's why the prayer and the meditation is so important. Opening the door to our deepest nature means looking past those things that get in our way to seeing who we really truly are and asking for that divine part of us to stir, awaken, and grow. Allowing ourselves to feel the adoration of spirit is the key that opens the door to becoming spirit. Only then can all of God's divinely bestowed gifts be realized in our daily lives, every day, every way, every moment. God really is alive, aware, and awake. And I would like to bless you and hope that you may be blessed with God every day in your way, in your life. God bless you.